My first memory is of a dead man. I'm 4. Rolls of morning fog swirl around me. I look up and there he is, strung by a dozen silver ropes between pine trees like a caught fly, dripping with blood. His expression is one of shock and horror, but mainly of death. Years later, when the memory surfaces without any reason, I ask my grandmother about it. Sometimes the forest gives, she says with a shrug, and sometimes it eats. At the time I think she means how we often conjure up terrible fantasies deep in the woods, that my memory is really a misremembering. I now know that isn't what she meant at all. I live in a cabin in the heart of the forest, the deep woods. That's what Gran has always called it. At least. I'm old enough now that I suspect there's another name for the place we live, but she's never offered it up. At this point, I don't care much. It's always been just the two of us, as far back as I can remember. No cousins or friends that come for a visit. Not my parents or even the memory of them. I might have thought Gran kidnapped me as a baby and is hiding me in the middle of nowhere, if it weren't for our shared crooked noses, skewed at exactly the same angles, and the way we both sneeze in the strong sunlight, and besides, if I were some kidnapped child, escaping wouldn't be an issue. I'm in town twice a week for classes with the other local children, usually just Hollis and Jackson. But Nara too when her father lets her. We have a computer with internet in our reading nook, and I'm given free rein to roam the deep woods whenever I please. As long as I follow the superstitions, that's what I call them at least. Stomp at each end of a bridge 3 times whenever you cross one. Leave milk on the front porch every summer and winter solstice. Crush soonberries before they can ripen to purple. Never leave a photograph in view of an open window. Always lock the door before sunset but unlock it before sunrise. To her, these rituals are rules. Unchangeable forces of nature like velocity or gravity, a way of life. To me, though, a rule has always been a thing with a consequence behind it. There has to be a point. When I was young, I didn't know the difference, but isn't it the same for any child? Rain is just as normal and natural to us before we learn about the water cycle as it is after. Things simply are. It's only when we can finally reach the top shelf that we start to question. Slowly, as I grew, the two categories began to separate, rules and superstitions. Keep away from the burning oven rule. Walk a circle around the cabin 10 times before bed every night was superstition. Even now, some things are more difficult to categorize. Don't get me wrong. Gran is wonderful. She feeds me, and sings me to sleep, and teaches me to tell a thistle sprig from a viper nettle. I never could have asked for a better caretaker. At the same time, there are things about my childhood I still don't understand. Never be caught in the hail, she told me once. I have distinct, vivid memories, sitting on her lap, watching granules hit the pine needles outside our home. After the hail turned to rain, we would both hurry outside to collect the frozen chunks by the handful. What Gran did with the hail we collected, I never figured out. What use could somebody have for bits of dirty ice? We would tie loose bits of thread around the trees by our house. Whenever my clothing grew too bare or my sleeves ripped, Gran would spend hours carefully unspooling the entire outfit. Then we would take the basket of threads to the pine trees, dig shallow holes, and wrap the threads around the base. It became a game. Yarning, I would call it. I would run in circles around the pine trees, until I grew dizzy and fell to the dirt in a giggling heap. When I was done, we would fill in our holes to bury the threads. Trees are fickle creatures, Gran would tell me. They need a shorter leash than most or they forget who they're loyal to. Us? No. She offered an odd smile. Not us. Why did we do that? What was the point? There are other odder things, things I can't quite brush off to superstition. Like the hiker in red, his arrival is like a holiday, and not in the sense of celebrations and fireworks but in the way something reoccurs every year. Every September 28th, we know to expect the hiker. He stumbles to our doorway, bedraggled and soaked in sweat, red shorts and red t-shirt. "Please," he always say. "I'm lost. Come in." Gran waves him in, gives him food and water, and listens to his story. He'd gone on a solo backpacking trip to the Sierras but lost the trail. He was out of food, out of strength, and he'd been wandering for he couldn't remember how long now. Days? A week? Where is he now? This is the deep woods, and town is that way. Gran will point him towards the village. Eventually, he wanders off in that direction, seemingly to go find more help, but every year, he's back. "What do you do?" I finally asked him one year. Gran was out back fetching water where she couldn't hear us. She didn't like me prying too much into the hiker in red. "Pardon? In the time you aren't here? What do you do all year in the forest before you come back?" "I don't. I'm not." His head jerked then. His eyes blinked rapidly, like a computer stuttering to restart. When he refocused on me, there was a new look in his eyes, something besides the scared desperation that was there year after year, a hunger. "Here you are," Gran said, coming back in with a jug of water. He blinked and the look was gone. Perhaps it was my imagination. Perhaps the man had merely been annoyed, but in that brief second, there's lots of these things. Superstitions without reason or oddities without explanation. It's the way it's been for years, my entire life. Gran and me, the two of us, alone in our cottage in the heart of the deep wood, until a week ago. "I found a new void tree," I told Gran. She looked up from her dream catcher, needle in one hand, thread in the other. A stack of completed ones sat on the porch table next to her rocking chair. "A void tree?" she asked. "It's been years since I've spotted one. Just past the stream, inside that thicket of elms. I never thought to look inside, but it was right there, in the center of them all." An odd excitement lit her face. She hurried to her room to grab a spile and a bucket. "Void trees, I've looked them up online before. I've asked Hollis and the other kids about them too. Far as I can tell, though, there's no such thing as a void tree outside of the deep woods. They're tall with shockingly red bark and shockingly black leaves. I've never much cared for them, but there's something unnameably disconcerting about them, but Gran hunts for them whenever we go out walking, usually to little success. Why don't you grow your own?" I've asked her before, she only shook her head. "Void trees don't work like that." I led her to the thicket of elms, and then through the gap between branches to the center. Sure enough, a void tree leered down at us. Gran wasted no time. She used a drill to make a hole in the trunk and a hammer to pound the spile into that hole. She hung a bucket from it. "Well done," she told me. "The eyes of youth are worth 100 eyes like mine." There's another oddity. Void tree sap. Gran collects it by the bucketful from a dozen different locations. As far back as I can remember, she harvests it throughout the year, then bottles it in jugs, and stores it in our basement. Every once in a while, a jug will go missing. Whenever I've asked where the sap goes, she only pinches her lips. Once, I dipped my finger in one of the buckets and licked the sticky residue in front of her. It was bitter, not sweet like maple. She shook her head, made me wash off my hand, then lectured me for half an hour. "It's too valuable to be eaten," she repeated. This new void tree was Christmas come early to her. She checked it every day that week, sometimes twice a day. In the evenings she would lug buckets of sap back to our home to boil and can. Some days, I helped. Mostly, she seemed happy enough to do it herself, so I let her, and then on day 5, yesterday, she didn't show up. It wasn't like her. Gran was always home by sunset for our nightly ritual of circling the cabin. 10 times every night before bed, that was the superstition. She was always back by now. I checked the usual places. The stream where we would catch crawdads. The valley overlook she liked to walk to. I was about to make the trek to town to see if she'd gotten caught up at the general store, when I thought of the void tree. She was unconscious when I found her. Dried blood crusted her forehead, and a thick, broken branch lay in the dirt beside her. It wasn't difficult to tell what had happened. Gran. Gran, wake up. I tried to rouse her, but she was unresponsive. I tried lifting her, but I've never been an especially strong girl. Eventually, even though I hated it, I left. I sprinted the entire way to town, and screamed for Dr. McKenty. After another hour, well after dark had fallen, they finally managed to get Gran to the mini building that the town refers to as the hospital. She was already coming to by the time Dr. McKenty stuck her with an IV, but she was still groggy and confused. I sat with her until she finally seemed to recognize me. "Juniper," she said. "Hi Gran. How are you feeling?" She smiled and reached for my hand. "My head. It aches. I remember going to check on the sap. A branch fell. It hit you, but they say you'll be all right." Her eyes went wide. "The cabin," she said. "Did we circle it already? I can't remember." For once, could she just give up these rituals? There was no time. "You got hurt, we had to bring you here. Is it dark already?" She looked wildly for a window. When her eyes latched onto one, her expression went terrified. I'd never seen her look like that. "You have to go now, Juniper. Walk around the cabin 10 times and lock the door. You might still have time. Gran, I'm not going to leave you. Nothing bad is going to happen. The deep wood is our home." The deep wood isn't our home," she said. "It's nothing but a stomach." She dug her nails into the back of my hand. Still, she wore that terrible expression, like something was irreparably wrong. "Go," she hissed. "Please." I did. It was better for her rest if I left. That was my rationale. She didn't seem able to calm down with me there. I know to many the forest is a terrifying place at night, but for me, it's the same as wandering down to your kitchen for a snack at midnight. Slightly creepy, yes. Not terrifying though. The deep woods are my home. The trails are familiar. When I got to our cabin in the dark, I considered just going in, locking the door, and going to sleep. It had been a long couple of hours. Gran would question me in the morning. That much I was sure of. She'd ask me if I'd done the ritual, and I would have to lie to her. That's never been something I'm especially good at, nor have I cared to be. Fine then. I would do it. 1, 2, 3. 4 times I walked around the cabin. I could have done it with my eyes closed after so many years of the ritual. Every bucket, bench, and bush around the cabin was known to me, the same places as always. 5. There was a snap from the darkness of the trees. Nothing unusual. 6. I paused. That sound. It was nothing. A raccoon perhaps. 7. Something was off. There was a noise, almost like breathing but heavier than any animal I knew of. I could feel it now. Whenever I passed by the front door, something was watching me from the foliage. "Hello?" I called out. Nothing. 8. I hurried faster. My walk turned into a run, but still I didn't risk turning on a flashlight. That would only let the thing see me as much as it would let me see it, and I knew our yard better than anyone else. Sticks cracked and leaves crunches as if the thing was approaching. 9. Only one more, I told myself. You're almost there. I had less than a rotation and I could throw myself inside. Lock the door, be safe. The steady crunches turned to a pounding. The thing was sprinting for me. I flung open the cabin door, hurled myself inside, and slammed the door behind me, the 10th time. I hadn't finished. Thump, something crashed into the wood. It scratched and scrabbled at walls. I reached up and twisted the bolt, heart pounding, breath heavy, the back door. Had I locked it earlier? For precious seconds I couldn't move. What was happening? What was trying to get inside? But then the pounding stopped, and audible footsteps skittered around the side of our house. I sprung up, threw myself at the back door, and slammed it locked just as the thing reached it. More scratching. More pounding. "I'm sorry," I whispered even though Gran couldn't hear me. "I should have believed you." The frantic noises grew louder. The thing wanted in. It wanted me. The wood creaked. The hinges shuddered. The door was going to give in, and this creature was going to crack. Silence. After the single echoing snap, the noises stopped. The thing went totally quiet. I waited for another half an hour, back against the door, knowing it would come back, but it never did. Eventually, I drifted off. In the morning, my eyes flitted open just before dawn. I would have stayed there in our cabin, eating our food storage until it ran out, if it meant I didn't have to ever go outside again. In the end though, it was Gran's other superstition rules now, that made me do it. Lock the door before sunset and unlock it before sunrise. I wouldn't risk disobeying one of them again. From the front of the house, the deep woods seemed normal as always. Birds chirped overhead. But then I traveled to the back, the side the thing had been on when it went quiet. His expression was one of shock and horror. But mainly of death. The hiker in red was slung up between 4 or 5 trees, held up by dozens of assorted threads and bits of yarn. They didn't wrap around him like one might expect. They shot through him at every angle. One purple thread passed directly through his forehead. A single bead of blood had dried there. I could remember it. That snap of something being yanked backwards all at once. More than that, I recognized the threads. They were the ones Gran and I had looped around the pine trees for years, the remnants of my own retired clothing. The longer I looked, there was something else frozen in the hiker's expression besides surprise, something that wasn't obvious at first, that hunger from long ago. An aching, senseless need to consume. For a long while I just stared up into his face, then I grabbed a bucket and headed for the void tree. I live in a cabin in the forest. I used to say the heart of the forest, but I know that isn't true now. There are lots of things my grandmother never explained to me, but once she's back from the hospital, I intend to question her about them, all of them. When she does, I'll keep you posted. I'll ask about her rituals and rules, but the first thing I plan to ask her is this: the deep wood is a stomach, so what is its food?